Hello, 7th and 8th grade students of Maternity BVM up in Chicago. This is Father Mike Metz coming to you from the Archdiocese of Atlanta. I am a priest of the Archdiocese of Atlanta, but also a priest of the Archdiocese for the military. I'm stationed down here in Rome, Georgia, at a little parish called St. Mary's Catholic Church, and I've been here for about a year. Absolutely love it down here, but I had the opportunity to do all of my studies up in Chicago. I studied at Mundelein Seminary, and while I was up there studying, I had the great opportunity of going and spending a lot of time with your teacher, Sister Alicia Torres, down at their mission, the Franciscans of the Eucharist, helping out, serving their neighbors, and just getting to know the sisters really well. And so Sister Alicia has actually become one of my close, great friends, and she reached out and asked me to give a little personal testimony about one of the things that you've been studying in class that is kind of difficult to understand, the difference between objective and subjective truth. But to try and give a little personal testimony in order to make those abstract theories, those abstract ideas, a little bit more graspable, a little bit more graspable, a little bit easier to understand by looking at, well, what does this look like on our day-to-day lives? So I have two examples that I've come up with. I'll start with the one that's less serious. So I'm a big meathead. I love sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball growing up in high school. Continued to play some sports in college and have continued to follow them throughout my time in seminary and as a priest. And one of those sports in particular is football. Football is absolutely my favorite sport of all time. I love every aspect of it. I love the rules. I love the games. I love the jerseys. I love the plays. I love the players. I mean, I love the strategy of it, so much of it. But in football, I think within this one subject, it's actually a great example of the existence simultaneously of objective and subjective truths. So what are some of the objective truths of football? Well, those are what we would call some of the rules, that in order to play the game of football, you have to follow the objective standards that are in place for both teams in order to actually play the game freely. So for example, what's an objective rule of football? Well, the team who scores the most points wins the game. If one team has 20 points and the other team has 21 points, it's an objective fact that one team has won, the team with more points than the other team. Well, so, okay, how do you get points in order to defeat the other team? Well, the objective standard in football to get points is you have to either kick the football through the uprights or you have to score a touchdown. And each time you score a touchdown, that's 6 points. Those are objective rules. That's an indisputable fact if you want to play the game of football. Now, if I came out with a baseball bat and somebody tried to throw me the football and I hit it into the stands and yelled home run, I should get 1 point. Maybe that would be really fun, that would be absolutely ridiculous, but that wouldn't be playing football. That would just be me hitting footballs into stadiums with baseball bats. But that's not an objective part of the football game. So we can measure, okay, exactly what teams are good, what teams are not as good as other teams, based off of the objective standards and rules that are in place for us to know how to play the game and in order for us to know who is victorious and who is playing the game correctly and who is playing the game the best. Okay, so what are my subjective truths about football, specifically college football? Well, growing up here in Georgia, our big university is the University of Georgia. Now, my subjective truth, okay, what I would hold to be true come hell or high water, is I believe that the Georgia Bulldogs are the best college football team in the country. I love every aspect of the Georgia Bulldogs. I love their players. I love their coaches. I love their uniforms. I love their games. I love their stadiums. I love the Georgia Bulldogs. But does that mean that it's objectively true? That everybody else, if they don't believe that, are wrong? No, because that's my own subject. I am a subject, and this is my subjective truth. So based off of my experience, based off of my knowledge, I've formed an opinion that shapes my awareness of the world around me. Now, notice that there is a relationship between the objective and the subjective. Now, because we all follow the same objective truths, it allows each college football team, it allows each college football fan to have their subjective truth informed by the objective realities that we already have in place through the rules of football, through the ways that we've all agreed to measure on what is good playing of football and what is bad playing of football. And we can look at, again, what teams have won the most games. And you know what teams have won the most games because they've scored the most points. And you know who scores the most points because they've executed their plays the best. They've made the football cross into the end zone to score 6 points more than the other team. Those are all objective facts. Now, we can take these objective facts and allow them to, again, inform us, to attain knowledge of them, to form an opinion, so that we can have an awareness of what is actually true. Now, the subjective truth, there's always going to be room for growth, room for improvement, because we don't know everything. But then there's also going to be the personal experience aspect of it. The Georgia Bulldogs are a big part of my life because all of my siblings went to school there, that we come together as a family and we watch the Georgia Bulldogs together. It's a good reason for me to eat tons of chips and cook out hot dogs and hang out with family and friends and enjoy a beautiful sunny day and enjoy the spirit of competition. And I've come to know all of those things in the context of being a University of Georgia football fan. So even though we can take these objective standards, that doesn't mean that it has to apply to everybody across the board, but that in the subjective understanding and our subjective truth and our construction of what we believe to be good and bad, right and wrong, true and not true, there's also a very strong personal element that comes in to inform us. So we have the subjective experience, but also informed by the objective reality. Now, I'll give this maybe a little bit more serious of an example, and hopefully I won't drag this on too long. But something that we believe as Christians is that we believe the objective truth that God is love, that God is love in Himself through and through, that God is love, and that He made you, that He made me. He made me in His image and in His likeness. We would say that those are objective truths. Regardless of what the subject believes, these things are still true no matter what. That God is love and He's made you in His image and likeness, and that He has made you very, very good. So the God who loves you is the God who made you in His very image and in His very likeness. That He is constantly loving you, and that if you exist right now, God is loving you into existence, that you don't have to be, and yet you are. These are things that we believe to be objectively true. Now, our own subjective experience of life oftentimes can feel quite alone, or we can feel like we're actually not loved, or we can feel like we're not very good, and we can start to believe misconceptions that inform our subjective truth, our subjective perspective, our subjective opinion of ourselves, of how we see the world, and of how we see God as well. And so the constant call for us as Christians, the constant call for myself is if I'm not feeling loved, to return. So this is my subjective experience. This is what I would proclaim to be subjectively true in this moment. I do not feel loved, or I feel alone. Well, now we want to allow the intake of as much information, of as much knowledge of the objective reality to inform our subjective experience, so that we're no longer just living in our subjective day-to-day, moment-to-moment feeling/experience, but that we're living more and more truly in the light of reality, in the light of truth, that's what we believe is Jesus Christ. And He gives us that ability by bridging this gap between the subject and the objective reality of God is love. He actually went so far as to come and to rescue us, to take us into the light of truth, both as the subject being crystallized in the objective reality, that we're constantly loved, that you're constantly known, that Jesus is with you always, that you are his sons and his daughters, and he'll never leave you behind, that he's always coming after you. So we want our subjective experience, our subjective truth, to be informed by the objective reality. But these two things are different. So just because we feel a certain way doesn't mean that it's 100% true across the board in all places and all times. But just because God is love doesn't mean that we experience that 100% all the time in our subject. And so we constantly return back to these objective realities in order for the knowledge of the other, the knowledge of capital T truth, of truth himself, to inform us so that we can come to know him and live in the light of reality at all times. That's what we want more than anything, because God is real if he's nothing else, and I want to live with him. So 7th and 8th graders, I hope you all are having an awesome day. So sorry that you're all quarantined, but know that I'll pray for you. When I finish this video, I'm going to say an Our Father, a Hail Mary, and a Glory be for all you guys. And y'all are so lucky to have Sister Alicia. She is the bomb, okay? God bless you guys. Yeah, know of my prayers. Peace. And pray for me, Father Mike Metz. I need it a lot. Ask Sister. I need it.